This morning, in this morning's Bible, Brock read from John chapter 8, and I want to build upon something Jesus said in John chapter 8 and verse 12. John chapter 8, verse 12 says, "Again Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." Now, what I want to do this morning, I have been studying with a young lady out at Merrill's Ridge for some time. She's not a member of the church, but I've been very impressed. Every so often you think there are just no young people of any value or morals left in the world today. But then you'll come across someone like Brock and Haley who are great people. You'll come across someone like this young lady out at Merrill's Ridge, and it renews your faith that there are good people in the world. But just to give you a little background for this lesson is primarily notes that she gave to me, and I asked if I could share these in a lesson. And a little background in this young lady's life is about 3 years ago, her father committed suicide, and she was there when he shot himself, and she held him until the paramedics arrived and he died in her arms. Now you can imagine what this would do to a teenager. It holds someone you love and care about who has decided that their life no longer has meaning for them, and in fact their life may not have meaning for you. And so every so often she says she goes to a dark place, and those dark places have been less and less frequent. The closer she comes to God, the less frequent she is to go to these dark places, as she calls them in her mind. And I've watched this progression, and I'm very impressed. And so what I want to do this morning is I want to share with you basically her biblical notes that I've put in a format for this lesson. So I hope that it's beneficial for you, as I'm hoping it will be beneficial for her at some point when she reads this lesson. Trusting Jesus when life is dark is not an easy thing to do. We've all experienced it. At the very least, we've experienced one or more of these. Fear, darkness, anxiety, depression. Those are all emotions that we could consider darkness in our lives. And they're all emotions that are normal for human beings to experience, at least to some degree. They're emotions that are not places. They're not pleasant emotions. They can be brought upon us. They can be triggered by any number of things. And Satan is going to see to it that if we are prone to these things, if we have something traumatic that's happened in our lives, Satan is going to make sure that there are things that crop up in our lives that make us really actually want to go to these dark places. So the question is, as Christians, how do we deal with them? Obviously, there are medical, things. There's medicine for some of these things if they're chronic. But even at that, I've known friends who have been on antidepressants who have committed suicide. At the end of this lesson, I'll have some statistics. But suffice to say, this morning, do you realize that suicide is at the highest rate that it's been in 80 years? The suicide rate in the United States has not been this high since the Great Depression. And the question I have is why? I think you'll see why this is as we go through the lesson today. But experiencing all of these is not wrong. It's not sinful. You're not doing anything wrong if you experience these dark places in your life. It's not even unusual, but it's how we deal with them that matters as Christians. And as I mentioned before, I want to share with you some notes that were shared with me by a young lady who's gone through all of these and really much more than what I've listed today. But her question to me originally was, what does it mean to trust in God? She came to me when she was in a very dark place and she said, Tom, what does it mean to trust in God? And I shared with her some thoughts and some Bible passages, and then she shared some back with me. One of them that she shared back with me is Psalms 56. If you'll go with me here to Psalm 56. The psalmist in Psalm 56 and in verse 3 says this. Actually, let's begin in verse 1. Be gracious to me, O God, for man tramples on me. The psalmist here is experiencing the injustice of his fellow man. In fact, the harshness, the unkindness of his fellow human beings. The psalmist says, and all day long an attacker oppresses me. They wander about for food and grow if they do not get their fill. Growl if they do not get their fill. Oops, I'm sorry, wrong. I flipped 2 pages. My enemies trample on me all day long, for many attack me proudly. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. She shared verse 3 with me specifically. When she is afraid, she puts her trust in God. There are people around us that will treat us disdainfully, but perhaps more often, we're treated disdainfully by Satan himself, who is actively seeking our demise, who throws these things in our path. To trust is to believe in the reliability, the truth, the ability, and the strength of something or someone else. In other words, when I cross the bridge down here and go to the west side of town, I cross the bridge, I trust in the strength and reliability of that bridge that has stood there for 50 years. Actually, it's longer than that now. But I believe that that bridge will carry my weight and the weight of the vehicle that I'm in. I don't question it. I don't question the structural integrity, but I rely on that structural integrity. When we trust in God, we rely on His truth, His ability, His strength when we have no strength.